All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Economic Community Services meeting. I'm your chair, Commissioner Larry Johnson. I'm joined by our committee member, Marita Davis Johnson from District 5, and Commissioner Jeff Rader will be on shortly. Also, our Commissioner Ted Terry and Commissioner Steve Bradshaw. And we got a whole host of staff that's ready, willing, and available to make things happen for us as we go forward. Commissioners, I hope you had a chance to review the minutes. And if you have, I will entertain a motion.
I have, and I'll make a motion that the minutes for the April 12th, 2022 meeting be approved.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rader. Is there any more comments? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of the motion, show of hands.
Oh, hold on, Commissioner Johnson. I withdraw my second because I note that I was not in the meeting.
Okay, I will second that. And
okay,
the properly second, all in favor of the motion. Motion ayes have it.
And I abstain.
All right, he abstained. That's right. That's right. And then we'll go to our first item. Is our High Sheriff available? She's on. Sheriff Maddox, is she on the line? All right, there she is. Hey, Sheriff, how are you?
Sheriff is doing fine. Another day in paradise in DeKalb County as the sheriff.
Oh, no, don't say that. Zach say that stuff. Don't say
that. Don't say that. Don't say that.
We got to find you another phrase. We're going to
I'm with you, Sheriff.
But thank you for being a part. And Sheriff, we want to say, first of all, thank you for offering yourself up. You're already serving in a very high distinguished role. And for you to join this community service board and what we're dealing with the mental health issues and crisis. And I know your jail has been impacted by mental health. And unfortunately, a lot of places, that's where they go to get their help for mental health. And so just thank you for being a part. And I'll start with the first question and then we'll go do a round robin. But would you like to start off with some opening remarks?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll start off. Tell me why you're interested in being on this community service board.
I'm interested in being the service board because I want to be a part of the issue that is so at hand, and it's the core of the issues that we are having, not just in DeKalb County, but throughout other areas for Atlanta. And this will help me get a better understanding of what we're dealing with here at the jail. As I said, it told you all before that, as of right now, we have 30% of the population here through Centurion, which is our mental health provider, that has been classified as mentally ill. And as we come up out of this pandemic, we're going to have more of it. And this will allow me to get the resources that are necessary to assist, since we don't have anywhere for these individuals to go to get the help that is needed. Incarceration is not, it's not for the mentally ill.
Thank you so much. And I'll go to Commission District 2. Commissioner Ray, you're next.
Thank you. Please describe how you plan to leverage your expertise in public safety as a member of the CSB in matters such as behavioral health and crisis services.
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that we have the resources that are necessary. I'll reach out to outside sources so that when these individuals leave the DeKalb County Sheriff Office, we have a program in place where they continue to stay on their meds, whether it be their meds or therapy that is needed. Some just need meds, some just need therapy, some need both. But we want to make sure that once they exit out, that they still have a plan in place to keep them on their meds or their therapy, whatever is needed, which keeps them safe. It's safe for them, it's safe for the community, and it's safe when these individuals go home. And that's what my part on the board will assist all of us with.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson, I think you're talking, but you're muted.
okay. Okay.
Sorry. District 5, Commissioner, next question.
Okay. Good afternoon, Sheriff. It's glad to have you here, and thank you again for offering yourself once more. But as a appointee to the Community Service Board, what are some of the priorities that you will focus on during your tenure tenure, and what outcome do you foresee as a result of the implementation of these priorities?
My first priority is going to be, as the sheriff, to make sure that those that are incarcerated in this facility get the necessary treatment that is deserved and what they need. That's first and foremost while they are incarcerated here. The second, once again, as I said before, is to make sure that once they exit out of this facility, they have the necessary medication and or therapy that they need. That comes from my relationship that I have already built with outside sources, and that means pharmacies and other medical team members that allow those people to go to these places in order to receive that which is needed. Once again, and to see, instead of being incarcerated, commissioners, you will constantly hear me say the jail is not the place for them, but while they are here, we're going to make sure that they are taken care of and that they are treated with dignity and respect and they get what is needed. But it's also about education for me. I'm very big on mental health and the youth in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll do the next question. What do you believe are the biggest challenges facing the Community Service Board, and how do you plan to advise the CSB regarding such challenges?
The biggest thing I think that's facing the Community Service Board is getting the support that is necessary. And that is housing for these people when when they're out in the community or when they come out of here. Where are we going to put them? Do we just put them back out on the streets? Some of them come from the streets, some of them come from homes. But what do we do in the meantime? And that is finding housing for them. How can I assist with that? Partnering with outside agencies to see how can we better work as a board member or with outside resources to assist these individuals, getting them on the right track and allowing them to become the productive citizens that we know they can be if they receive the right treatment and treatments.
Thank you for that answer. And I'll go to Commissioner Rader for our last question.
And the ever popular, are there any extenuating circumstances or potential reasons for recusal that could preclude or impede your service on the CS?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, please forgive me. I'm trying to hear. Sorry.
Are there any extenuating circumstances or potential reasons for recusal that would preclude or impede your service on the CSB?
There were not, Commissioner. I believe in, of course, in transparency and, as I said before, and treated everyone with dignity and respect. As we come out of this pandemic, we're going to see more and more of mental illness to arise, and majority of them will more than likely become residents of the DeKalb County Jail. And it's incumbent upon me as the sheriff to make sure that we have necessary staff that's in place to make sure these individuals are taken care of while they are incarcerated here, as I said before, and to make sure they are safe as they exit out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Madam Sheriff, would you like to do some closing statements before we let you go?
No, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be able to be a part of the Community Service Board, and I will do everything that I can in my power to make sure that we get, again, what we needed, but what we need here, and not just at the sheriff office, but what is needed in the community. We want to make sure that they go out better than what they did when they came in, to be able to work with families, not also about working with just the sheriff and the outside resources, but we're also working with the families. As you know, families become victims when, mental illness is with one, the mental illness affects the whole family. And we have to make sure that we are aware of that and pull together because it affects the community. And I'm going to do my part.
Thank you. Let me redirect myself. I have commissioners who've joined. Any of the commissioners who are on would like to ask a question?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Madam Sheriff, and staff will be in contact with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry.
It's all right. Now we'll move commissioners to items 1389 and Ms. Horner.
Excuse me, Commissioner Johnson. Will we be taking a vote on her appointment?
Yes. I was going to do it after we finished.
Oh, okay.
These two procurement items, and then I was going to do it. Ms. Horner?
All right, it's 2022-1389. It's a renewal. Meal services for seniors, provision of congregate and shelf-stable meals at the senior centers. It's an annual contract, first renewal with 2 options to renew. Contract number 1226949 for use by the Department of Human Services. The contract consists of the provision of congregate and shelf-stable meals for seniors, awarded to Meals on Wheels at Manta, amount not to exceed $470,836.92. And purchasing's recommendation is to approve the exorcism of the first renewal option through April 11th, 2023.
Thank you so much. Mr. Scott, would you like to add to this item?
Thank you, Commissioner. This is the same contract that was awarded by way of RFP, and this will allow us to extend services when the senior centers open back up to provide congregate meals underneath the original scope of work.
Great, great. All right, commissioners, any questions for Mr. Scott? Commissioner Rader?
So is the reason that the amount spent to date is 0 is because you haven't had any congregate meals? Is that what I'm hearing? Over the past year?
We repurposed it, Commissioner, back in September, I believe it was, where we made adjustments during the pandemic to deliver congregate meals to the homes of seniors. So we did make that adjustment, but this one will allow us to extend the original contract into April of 2023 within the size of senior centers.
Okay, and I see that the cost is escalating from $816 to $825 per meal. Is that part of a contractual escalator from the initial award, or is the cost adjustment discretionary?
It's within initial award. We haven't spent any dollars yet on this particular contract. We were able to utilize CARES Act funding, emergency funding during the pandemic.
No, but what I'm asking is the escalator embedded in the contract, or is it something that is negotiated based upon an annual proposal?
This will be covered, the cost of the meals will be covered within the existing contract, Commissioner.
Right, but the escalator from $816 to $825, was that built into the contract that said that it would escalate by, what is that, 9 cents a year, or is that just a result of the renewal? It was the $14,000 that was approved, and that is also covered within this contract. Okay.
Yeah, he was more interested in, do you have escalators built into these contracts?
Mr. Rader, I get the question and you just nailed it. If you know the answer, Director
All
Scott.
right, you can get it to me later if
Can we?
that's not immediately. I just am interested to see how the contract is structured in that regard. So
If it was built in or if this is a result of inflationary pressures. Or something.
It's still cheaper if you look at it in terms
No,
of.
I mean, I'm not objecting.
you're
I
not.
just want to know how it worked.
Yeah, I know you're not. Just saying look at what we're paying, people paying now for meals.
No, I agree. That's a good process.
All right.
Good food.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Marita Davis Johnson.
I have a couple of questions, and one is, okay, the meal types will change from warm to frozen. And so I would assume that since that's been done, that, Damon, there's a microwave in every home of a senior.
Well, not every senior has a microwave in the home. That just allowed us during the pandemic to be able to, of those that did, to receive the meals in their homes. Of those that required more meals, we had provisions that we did where we had different vendors that could provide that option during the pandemic. But this particular extension of contract for Meals on Wheels Atlanta would go back to warm meals for the seniors when the senior center is open.
Oh, it would go back to warm meals because
Yes,
it says,
but we have the opportunity, we have the ability to do both.
okay, but it says to change the meal type from warm to frozen. So it doesn't give an option. It said we're going from warm to frozen.
Right. That was at the beginning of the pandemic. In order for us to transport the meals, we went from warm to frozen, and we went to the board for that approval in order to do that. And
Okay, so that's not under this contract that you're calling for, although I'm seeing it in the purpose.
we're not asking for it to go back to frozen. No, ma'am. No, Commissioner, that's not what we're asking to do. We're asking to just extend the contract, and then we still have the option to serve warm meals when the senior center is open, and we still have the option to deliver frozen meals to seniors of those that choose not to come back inside the senior centers.
Okay, so then for the for legal, so that wording is fine with what Damon is saying. Is that correct? I mean, the wording is good. Because the purpose clearly says under here that is moving from warm to frozen. And so I'm saying if that's the type of agreement that we have, no matter what our intent is, I mean, that's what the agreement would say. So, so I'm just asking legal, am I missing something?
No, ma'am. Now, the language in the agenda item itself, of course, is not binding. It would be, that's for reference for the board as to intent, but it would be the final language in the agreement itself that would govern, Commissioner, and we can take a look at that and adjust that language if need be.
Oh, okay. Okay, I just want to make sure that language is not in there if that's not what we mean. And then there's a 10% LSBE participation. Is there a reason why it could not be at 20? Whoever would answer that, I guess the COO.
Right, actually, or Ms. Horner, Director Horner.
Thank you. One thing that I would like to do is, if you don't mind, go back and answer Commissioner Rader's question. There is a yearly increase built into the contract, and that is included in the original cost proposal. And then as far as the move to frozen meals, which Commissioner Marita Davis Johnson had answered, that actually was approved by the Board of Commissioners on June 8th of last year when we made that change. And I believe that may have been in response to being in the pandemic. And so that still stands because this renewal does not change. It moves us all back to warm or ready to heat meals. And then as far as the LSPE participation goes, we did advertise it with a 20% benchmark as the ordinance requires. But in this particular instance, there was not 20% of the work to be able to subcontract to an LSPE because it is actually food that is prepared off-site of the senior centers, as my understanding, and delivered to the senior centers by the actual prime contractor. So you can see that there are services to be provided for staff and managed server positions at 3 of the senior centers. And unfortunately, that was the only participation that they could locate an LSPE for and receive an agreement to perform.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Ted Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I did want to just say that over the years, I have volunteered to deliver some of the Meals on Wheels routes in the Clarkston area. And I will say that the seniors who I've interacted with over the years really appreciate the service. They appreciate someone coming by and talking with them for a few minutes, if not more sometimes. So just, great work of Director Scott and the department on just, being available I always remember everyone loved the meals. And I do remember it was kind of a mix of hot and cold, depending on kind of what I think the clients do get a little bit of choice. And there might be some like diabetes specific kind of meals and things like that. I did want to ask, because it came up at the mosque, actually, me and Steve and Lorraine were at the mosque and they were talking about halal meals for the school system. Does this contract allow for halal meals if that was what a client wanted?
Thank you, Commissioner, for that question. It allows for special meals and any special dietary or accommodations to be made. That request can be made as part of the assessment, and those adjustments can be made. Yes, Commissioner.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And just to clarify context, the Meals on Wheels provider that was awarded this RFP, remember, it was before the pandemic. And then the senior centers were closed. So we still had an obligation to feed the seniors. So in order to make that shift and an adjustment, we repurposed the meal delivery so that we could deliver meals to the seniors at their location that would normally come to senior centers for congregate meals. The best transporting method of that was frozen meals, and of those that did request hot meals, we had additional vendors that did do that. And so now, in order to extend this contract, going to 2023, this is the first renewal option that allows us both options. And when the centers open back up, this provider will be cooking meals on site and seniors will resume services in that way. And so I just wanted to provide that clarification and that context. And the cost of it during the pandemic, as with most suppliers, the cost of production and the meals went up during the pandemic, so that we came back to the board to ask for that increase, and that dollar figure was $14,000 to cover that cost. But we will be able to administer the entire program with this renewal underneath the existing contract and allocation.
All right, thank you. Any more comments, commissioners? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to recommend approval.
Second,
Moved and properly second for approval. All in favor, show of hands and words. Aye.
aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And now we'll go to our second item. Ms. Horner.
Okay, that is a low bid. It's agenda item number 2022-1441. And it is for Memorial Drive corridor branding for use by the Department of Community Development. Consists of the development of identity graphics and standards branding along a section of Memorial Drive. Recommend award to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Hauser Walker Architecture LLC, amount not to exceed $102,400. And our recommendation is to award to Hauser Walker Architecture.
All right, thank you so much. Can we have some input from Mr. Mitchell?
Oh, yes. Good afternoon, commissioners. John Metowski is going to put my slide back up. First of all, thank you for allowing me to present. Years ago, I participated in an RFP proposal where we actually memorialized the Memorial Drive Revitalization Corridor Plan. It was awarded to PON, and I was an active participant on the RFP committee. Had a lot of fun, I might add. Today, we're following up on the recommendation from that study to effectively create what we call branding for that corridor, and I'll take you to great details on that. Because we have CDBG funds, and because streetscapes and things like this are eligible within the guidance of HUD, we've agreed to fund a project which is overdue and well-deserved to improve the corridor within the Memorial Drive. It basically is $102,000 to do the following work with Hauser Walker, and I have great experience with Hauser Walker. They did the design component for the Central DeKalb Senior Center. They've done other projects over the years with us. I have great confidence in this law firm that we've used, not law firm, but architectural firm we've used over the years. So I'm very familiar with Greg Walker and the work that they do as this firm. So moving forward, the phases that we have in place are phase 1 to phase 4, which will do the basic classical things for designing of a project. The end deliverable would be design and drawings to be able to get us to fabricate this signage, which I explained in a couple of seconds for this quarter. But in essence, we cover the community research and branding. There's a design standards as what we have to use, site-specific monuments throughout the quarter, and I'll show you in a minute what the quarter looks like, and the construction administration, which is in essence the work that an architect does when we fabricate. When we build buildings, is what they do when we build buildings. But in the case of fabrication of signs, you need construction administration to ensure that the fabricator adheres to the plans that will be developed. Next slide, John. Okay, by way of background, in 2018, we planning at worked on the study that I alluded to earlier, which I was a participant on. In addition to that, they came up with 3 objectives, which are very key. And that is to, 1, change the perception of the Memorial Drive quarter. You have to change the perception there. Increase demand to get more revenue in that area for economic development purposes, and to encourage healthy redevelopment. That was a backdrop of this whole study. Chart 2, John, next one, John. Okay, here is a focus on the quarter. It's a high level graphic, but in essence is a Gateway West, which is near the jail, near 285 and Memorial Drive. We're all very familiar with that area. And then it goes all the way down to what we call Gateway East, which is by Hambrick going toward Stone Mountain. And the idea here is to focus on specific events along this quarter. The Global City Initiative would be to get the ethnic reference in the area to be consistent in that area. And then Hambrick Village is more near shopping and shopping centers, malls that have issues currently that we need to develop. And toward the bitter end, toward the east end, you would end up having a focus on that entry as you go to Stone Mountain Park. So we had effectively designed branding as well as signage along the continuum from the east and from the west. So if you come from Stone Mountain, you see the entry to this quarter, this precious quarter. And if you're coming from the Maloof building going to the jail, you would enter into that quarter as you go over the bridge, which we're labeling as being the Gateway West. But the key thing here is to change the perception to denote the entry to this precious quarter that we'd like to redevelop for economic development purposes. Next chart, John. Here's an example where we alluded to earlier. The scope of the work will be to identify graphics and standards for the area, because the standards will propagate how we do the design. The second goal of the project is to develop large-scale, highway-scale signage standards that incorporate and identify graphics. And the third goal is to design specific exterior monumental signage for sites determined by the county. If you look at this very closely, I've got a graphic of Atlantic Station. And I'm quite sure everyone on the call has been to Atlantic Station. You can see that there are areas where when you enter Atlantic Station, it's pretty obvious, and there are attractive signage there to denote that area. Next slide, John. Here's another example. As I go to play golf in various places around metropolitan area, I go to Cobb a lot and go out to Villa Rica and Douglasville, but believe it or not, Cobb County has some very nice signage. And here's an example of something that is designed specific exterior monumental signs to let you know that you're welcome to South Cobb, which is a new branding technique. And as you go down South Cobb, there are other sub signs along the way to let you know where businesses are and help you with navigation to propagate the area. So on both sides of I-20, they have signage like this, letting you know that you're entering South Cobb. So the idea here is it's very catchy, and these signs are very large and attractive. We would end up creating our own signage for Memorial Drive, where you would denote very quickly, and people get excited because you are within the Memorial Drive quarter. So that's an example of some of the things that will be developed. The next chart. And lastly, the scope of work would be the obvious things, which is community research, on-site investigation and documentation. Obviously, community meetings is very important to get the community engaged. Brand identity development. You need an identity. That's very important, the word identity. Signage design options and sign design options in site-specific locations, which means that entry to the quarter, east and west, but along the continuum, we would denote places where you need signage to be able to let people know how to get to businesses, and also a recognition within the quarter. Last chart, John. And questions. So with that, I'll rest this presentation and entertain hopefully a host of questions in this regard. So Hope that helps.
Thank you so much. And now I have a question, and I think the commissioners may be able to answer it. Mr. Mitchell, this is a question. So the 4 circles that you picked, that will be part of the discussion that you will have with your charrettes, or that's already embedded in there?
Well, those 4 areas were key outputs from the original study that was done by PON in 2018, 2019, where they thought that those areas would be very important to focus on. They're anchor points within the corridor. So the entry, the global city was more the ethnicity in that area is sort of exemplified by that area. And Hambrick Village was an area where there are a lot of shopping centers in atrophy. They're not doing very well. So those are just points denoted within the corridor. And of course, the West End, getting you to enter to Stone Mountain. Those are just in the study. It's a fairly healthy study. I encourage you to read it. I can ship you a copy if you choose to, but it just notes things that PON felt we should do. And we embrace those ideas. And therefore the branding is going to be commensurate with the study to show those areas of focus. So they're all connected together.
I want to just commend, I think Commissioner Bradshaw kicked it off with his charrettes he had. And this is something I just threw out there, and he can help me, or whoever that represents in the area. You'll have 4 different personalities on one corridor, which is I never seen. I think is good. I just want to see who came up with the concept. I know you did it based on what you see in that area, but Memorial Drive does already have a lot of different personalities, but then you probably narrow them down to 4. But just something I just stood out, which was different to have, like in Disney World, where you have one theme park, then you have another one. It gives you some pop and personality. So Commissioner Bradshaw, that was a good take on that. So I'll go to any committee members. Okay, Commissioner Rader, and then I saw Commissioner Terry and Commissioner Bradshaw, if you want to chime in.
And I see Commissioner Terry, and he may be going to bring up this issue, but isn't it like Confederate Memorial Drive? And should that be part of the, consideration that we have in terms of the identity of the corridor?
Well, Commissioner, the outgrowth of the study will be to get with the community to make sure we have those things identified. So I'm not predisposed as what the outcome is going to be. Of course, we'll work with the architect and come up with that. If that ends up being one of the outcomes, we yield to that. But the purpose of this is to get an architect to put their cerebral power, intellectual capital into this and give us a good rendering. And of course, we're working with the Memorial Drive Task Force. We work with Commissioner Bradshaw extensively on the things we're doing in that quarter. So we're linked into a host of individuals that we meet frequently across all the departments in the county. We have everything from public safety, sanitation, community development, planning, sustainability. I could go on with all the departments. Yeah. We meet together collectively and put our thoughts together. This was one of the
question is that particular aspect within the scope?
I cannot say whether I recall seeing that particular aspect in the scope to answer your question. I'll go back and read it again, but I don't recall that standing out in my reading of it as a factor. But it could come out as we engage with citizens and this outreach initiative conducted by Hauser Walker. So, yeah. And I'll make a footnote to make him aware that to probe on that to see whether that's something that's salient to this study. I'll do that. I'll commit to do that.
Plus, that's a state highway, so you got to go to the state to deal with an issue like that.
And just, yeah, very good. And just to take that up, not to interrupt, I apologize, but where the area focus is from 285 to Stone Mountain. Obviously, we all know Memorial Drive runs from the state capitol to Stone Mountain. So, if we were looking at renaming or looking at that for the entire corridor, that's a whole order of magnitude in scale and scope different.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ted Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think so. Right. This scope is just for the kind of the eastern portion of Memorial Drive, and certainly kudos to Commissioner Bradshaw for leading this effort and moving things along. This is a very positive development, and I really support this and excited about it. And I think in the presentation you pointed out that there'll be community research. And I had been waiting for the right time to bring this up. So now's a good time to bring it up. But I think everyone should just kind of refresh ourselves, or in my case, had to kind of do a deeper research into it. But the DeKalb History Center does have a lot of good information about the history of Memorial Drive. It was built with convict labor, which of course I think we know and we should acknowledge was part of the Jim Crow era system of laws that, basically led to a lot of people doing forced labor and as in essence slaves. And then the most interesting part of the history lesson is that it came from a 1930 Atlanta Constitution article. And it said that East Fair Street would be officially renamed to Memorial Drive. This drew the memorial line from Georgia's state capitol to the, quote, eternal temple of the Confederacy. And later went on to say that another step in the effort of Atlanta and Georgia to honor the memory of the heroes of the Confederacy. So I definitely am sensitive to the fact that it's a state route, and changing names probably is, something, beyond our control. But I think in terms of that community research and sort of the community meetings, like, I think let's make this part of the conversation, and we'll see where it goes, right? But, I think as we move forward with the brand identity, I think it's always good to have historical acknowledgements, markers, or any additional things that we can add that really contextualize, the history of this road, because it goes back, almost 100 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Is there any more comments? And before we entertain a motion for a vote? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for a vote.
I'll move that we recommend approval, but, I would like Mr. Mitchell to report back on whether or not that particular aspect will be in the scope.
Yes, I'll do that. I'll do that.
I second the motion.
All right, moved and properly second. All in favor of the motion, show of hands and words, aye.
Aye.
No abstentions, no nays. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. And now we'll go to the Land Bank Authority. I wanted Mr. Mitchell to come forward because they need a budget to be approved for a director and an assistant. And so he's bringing more information back, and like a true IBMer, former IBMer, he has a PowerPoint, I guess, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, come on.
Mhm.
So, John, would you put that up? See if we can make it a little larger, John. Okay, great.
Mhm.
Yeah, we will. So commissions again, what I've done here is there are 2 pages on this in essence, and I asked John to make it larger. We might just shrink it a bit because it covers off. If John, I hate to bottom it again, but if you lower it down, yeah, okay. So in essence, what I've captured are 2 things. One, you see a budget on the 2nd page, but on the 1st page, I wanted to give you an update on some of the things that happen with the land bank. So,
Okay.
So the first part of the chart tells you that it's a land bank status, which is the very top of the chart. And John, if you go slide it in just a bit, I want to cover the first bullet on the chart. No, the other way up to the very top. Okay, thank you. So the land bank status. So we've had 4 board meetings since the land bank board has been reconstituted. 128, 310, 324, and 418. We're the staff department supporting the land bank. So we have, you've appointed and approved all the board members. So we have all board members are active. They've attended all meetings, and there's a lot of provocative dialogue. The chairperson we voted upon is Brenda Cornelius. You all know Brenda. Ervin Johnson, our famous tax commissioner, is the vice chairman. Inga Harmon, the most recent appointee, was the secretary, has been appointed secretary. Quinn Green, a real estate broker, is the treasurer. And Fred Reynolds is not an officer, but a member of the board. He comes from the city of Lithonia. As you know, have an agreement with Lithonia because that's a state requirement to have one city to be commensurate with the county. The next bullet is community development department is a staff support function. We run the meetings, we put the agendas together, we do all the legwork for the board and all that because we're very familiar with land bank law, et cetera. The recent board actions, just to make you aware of things that are going on, is number one, we had a selection of an interim executive director. Chris Bell, whom we all know works in GIS, has been picked as being the interim director, not the final director, but an interim director, because he's a county employee. He's going to dedicate probably 20-25% of his time, because he's doing similar work as you've seen with some of the surplus, unredeemed, unforeclosed properties. But it's something he also wanted to do. And I've worked with Stacey Greer, the director, to have Chris come over, and he's interviewed by the board and they like him. So he's going to be the interim director for the land bank, and he's going to charge part of his salary to the land bank budget. Number two, selection of a law firm to develop bylaws and policies and procedures. We picked Foster Smith for the procurement process, where we had a couple of law firms that come in and present, and they were the lowest bidder to develop bylaws and policies and procedures, because we have to register with the Secretary of State with our bylaws, which are out of date. Item three, selection of a banking partner. Citizens Trust emerged through a procurement again as being the valuable bank to use. We've had a lot of business with Citizens Trust. It's not Wells Fargo, but we have done a ton of work with the county. In addition, approval of the annual budget submitted to the county. So what you're going to see in the next page will be the budget that the board approved to submit to the county, which was approved, and I share that with you in a second. We can skip there if you choose to. The budget that was submitted to the county, which was approved in the general fund in February, was a budget which has $350,000. The delineation of that was a classical delineation, which is salary and benefits, $100,000, legal work, which is about $50,000, professional fees. Insurance refers to directors and officers insurance, travel, albeit small travel, property maintenance at the time, $150,000, and office supplies will be $20,000. We've also discovered that back in 2019, Commissioner Lorraine Cochran Johnson had appropriated funds, and at one time we thought they had been lost, but I've discovered that in Oracle, we still have access to the $200,000 that was originally appropriated by the commissioner. So we're happy to say that our budget is $350 plus $200. And I've also found a couple of checks lying around that were appropriated to the last land bank that we're going to use. So our budget is $350 plus $200, which says that we're in a good shape today to be able to actively run the land bank. John, can you go back to the next chart, the one I had before? Okay, go down to the actions by the board. Okay, yeah, I stopped at the budget. So item 5, authorization, the procurement of officers and directors insurance. We've got that underway to get O&D for the land bank. In addition, we've authorized procurement of a web designer to have our own separate website, because most land banks have that, and listing more properties and tell you a lot about board minutes. Any board minutes will be publicized on this website. In addition, we interviewed 2 law firms for possible agreements for ongoing legal actions to support. We picked someone to do bylaws, but we need someone to be an ongoing lawyer for a law firm for the land bank, and that's still under consideration. The next item will be formal requests to the school board. The bylaws, not bylaws, but the IGA calls for a representative from the school board to the extent we get into significant real estate transactions where someone will come there to be aware, to come back to the school board to make them aware of our actions. And the last thing is that the land bank has received tutorials from my staff as well as prominent individuals in the land bank world to train them on land banking. So, and the Center for Community Progress came in with an elaborate presentation, the Land Bank 101, 102, 103, to take them through some fundamentals, because a lot of them did not have in-depth knowledge about land banking. So that covers the 2 charts for an update. So with that, I'll rest and entertain questions regarding the land bank. Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much for that detailed report. And I thought this meeting was going to be you were trying to get a budget, but you all have been working to pull together a budget. Now I'll open it up for questions, and then I'll see from legal, do we have to approve this budget, or we wait till the Land Bank Authority approve it and bring back recommendations? So that's a question I propose to legal to answer. So any questions from the committee? And then I got you, Commissioner Ted Terry. Commissioner Marita Davis Johnson. Commissioner Davis Johnson, we can't hear you.
From your question.
With the, with the monies that you say that you have in the bank, and I think that's 300, and did you say 350,000?
Commissioner, what I said was that we submitted a budget. The board approved the budget, the land bank board. I submitted to TJ. You approved the general fund, which included the allocations in the land bank. So the budget that was approved this second BOC in February included the 350 for the land bank as a balance on the budget. So our budget has been approved by you. Thank you for having done that. So that's all they're.
Okay. Do we have the itemized budget as to what is paid where within the budget?
We've not spent money. The money is actually still in the general fund. It's going to be allocated to a CIP, and we're going to draw it to a bank account. The bank account has not been set up yet, but the funds have not been. It's been allocated, and we're going to look forward to spending money in the future. To date, we've not spent any money. The initial officer and director insurance or any trivial funds are being spent. We're paying for that out of community development block grant funds until the funds are transferred over. So to date, there are zero expenditures. There will be some in the near term because we just hired a lawyer to be able to do policy and procedures. But to date, zero expenditures for the land bank. In the future, we will have expenditures. The other point I made was that Commissioner Lorraine Cochran Johnson had appropriated funds years ago, and we had reported that those funds were lost from the finance department. We've since discovered that we still have that $200,000 that she appropriated and is still available. So we're going to add that to the land bank budget to increase the budget from 350 to 550.
Okay. And okay, so what I'm asking is, will we at some point get an itemized statement of that budget?
Yeah, so there's a preliminary budget, but I will promise to come back and give you a detailed budget because it's just a mindset of the board. We did that before you had appointed the board members, and that budget reflects my staff's input, but it's probably equally important to come back and render explicitly a new budget where we reallocate the 350 plus the 200,000 and have it blessed by you. We'll come back with the detailed budget that reflects the details that, again, detail, double talk, I'm sorry. We come back with a budget that effectively gives you the details that get to the 550, which is a combination of the 350 and 200 at a later date.
Okay. Thank you. That was fine.
Can you bring it back in 30 days?
Yes, we have a board meeting coming up in May. I was
trying to give your board a chance to meet and dialogue and talk, so I didn't want to do 2 weeks, but 30 days.
We're going to need 30 days because the next board meeting is going to be in May 12th, if I recall, is the next board meeting. And so therefore I can present that to the board and with some staff work and have them to vote on it if they choose to. If I can't make it in 30 days, I'll let you know, Mr. Chair, but I'll be back soon. It's just a predicate on having them weigh in with our board meeting being the next one in the second week in May.
And the other part is you need to look at salaries on executive directors, because I think if you're trying to do executive director and staff for $100,000, and I don't see benefits in there, that's why I'm glad Commissioner David Johnson asked for itemized. You're not going to find a lot of takers in those type of positions because they're very high demand. You're dealing with dilapidated properties. It's high profile. And so you have to really think about salaries when you hire for a position like that. So just I throw that out there for you to, I know your board's probably thinking about that, but that's just an aside. So Commissioner Ted Terry.
Yeah, can I comment on that, Commissioner? We're using an interim executive director on a part-time basis before they get to the point where you can go with a full-time executive director. So the economies of scale would be to use an existing county employee, Chris Bell, and it will only be 25% of his salary and benefits be charged for salaries and benefits. At a later date, when we're going to recast the numbers to accommodate, to your point, a viable candidate that will be selected on a research effort. But initially, the salary and benefits are adequate to cover 25% of Chris Bell salary and benefits to get us up and running. That interim status will be probably at least a year in to go. So
yeah, I just think I think you need somebody who's full-time, committed. That's something you work towards. But if you got somebody part-time, especially something we've been trying to get done for like 4 or 5 years, I don't know if you can do somebody 25% of their time on something like this because you got a lot of backlog. So just, I'll let y'all experts deal with that, but it's just an observation on the outside.
I
Commissioner
appreciate
Terry-
that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And congratulations, Director Mitchell and all the board members for getting this thing off the ground and rolling and having 4 meetings already under your belt. That's really exciting. I think the recent board actions look really encouraging and positive. See here Chris Bell as interim executive director. Clearly, he's been the most experienced in some of these transactions and analyses. So excited to see him involved there. Citizens Trust Bank, great banking, local bank institution. So that's exciting. I definitely support the school district having, a seat on the board. It sounds like we can add additional members beyond sort of just the minimum. So that's encouraging. And I think the only other thing I'd maybe just kind of, and then let me just thank and recognize Commissioner Cochran Johnson. It's really gratifying to see something on there that says 2019 and seeing that's now being put into use. So congratulations for, sticking with it. And, I'm glad that you had the foresight to get that in the bank early. The only other thing I was going to maybe just sort of point to, and I definitely agree with Commissioner Johnson about the director sort of salary. I know, the sort of the more mature and sort of long-term, established land banks have, real professional operations, and those directors are, kind of sort of high-powered executives who, know how the industry works and things like that. So I definitely agree with that statement. I guess I was kind of looking maybe in future meetings, maybe a little bit more of an explanation of kind of sort of the process, because I see I understand the 150,000 for the property maintenance cleanup and debris removal. That makes sense to me, although I think between our most recent contract to address abate issues on residential properties, and then of course the Operation Clean Sweep, there's several different kind of tracks and contracts where we're cleaning up properties or removing, litter or debris. And I guess my only concern would be that do we intend to transfer properties that we're currently maintaining through these other budget items, get them off of our books and onto the land bank books? And then the next question would be, well, how long would the land bank hold on to a property and use this line item to basically keep things static? And I mentioned that because I think that the land bank to me really is about, it's almost like the property's ready to move to the next level, not that they'll just hold on to a bunch of properties. But I could be wrong there, and maybe there's some information and guidance that can share with the commissioners. So I just wanted to mention that. I think that's something that to keep our eye on, because we could end up putting more and more money into the land bank just to maintain properties, when I think the idea is to get these properties, back on the market. Last 2 things I'll point out. I think we do need to have a little bit of kind of statement of sort of principles about affordable housing. I think most of these properties are going to probably be in the residential sort of parcel and zoning area. I had a meeting with Habitat for Humanity DeKalb last week, and they expressed some, frustrations because they have not been able to build any new homes for their families. Part of it is finding available lots that are, reasonably priced. They also did mention something that I think I had forgotten about, and maybe I could be wrong here, but they said that they couldn't build a home smaller than 2,000 square feet. Their homes typically are 1,600 square feet. And so that was another barrier that was, I guess, in our zoning code that was pointed out. And so I just, in some of these properties, there might be kind of an alignment of, is the planning department, being consulted, is the effort to just get back any sort of housing on these derelict properties, or are we trying to lean towards more affordable housing options? So I'd love just to kind of get a sense of where the board is their intent and their thinking about in that regard. And then lastly, we get invited to all of the other sort of meetings for like the audits and the SPLOST and the Board of Elections. Could we just get like sort of the FYI meeting invites for the land bank as well? Because I actually didn't know they were having I mean, I assumed they were having meetings. I didn't know they were actually having meetings, but I assume they're like open to the public and, you know, need to be advertised that way. So I just wanted to flag that just so we all know kind of what's going on. Thanks.
Commissioner, I can cover and answer some of those very quickly. The last one first. We had made a request to John Patelski. He's working with us to be able to go public. We've had 4 meetings, which have been like, let's call them executive sessions effectively, but we're ready to go public to be able to do that. And so, as you know, when you go public, you need to have IT involved so you don't get hacked. So our meetings in the future will be done with the guidance of the IT department. The decision as to what properties we take will be very selective. Some will be held for market use very quickly. They cycle through. Others will stay for a short period of time. The maintenance aspect has to do with the condition of the properties that you inherit. They're conveyed to us for various reasons. But the idea to get them back on the tax rolls as quickly as possible and retain the revenue for putting them back. As you know, the land bank receives the proceeds for the first 3 years for the non-school taxes, and that builds a budget for the land bank. So, and we will get you invited to the various meetings for the land bank. But again, they'll be open just like these meetings are to the public via Zoom in the beginning and face-to-face when we get back to be active. But we can make you aware of any transactions that we take on. But there's a strategy for being able to propagate properties to commercial use and are retained for the purpose of rebuilding. Affordable housing is a key factor in land bank developing, as well as economic development as well. And thirdly, blight removal. Those are the 3 objectives of the land bank. So all those facets will dictate what properties you get for economic development, affordable housing, or blight removal. But I'll rest with that, but we can get together if you choose to. I can give you more in-depth knowledge of land banking if you choose to.
Think one
And I might add tonight that I present to your own city, the city of Clarkston's city council, because they wanted to entertain getting into the land bank. They were once participant, but they backed out, and they would like to receive a presentation on land banking to consider being added to the DeKalb Regional Land Bank to add 1 more city. So we're working with the mayor and also the council people there to do that. So I have the task to present to them as well. So that's forthcoming.
That's
I think
good.
based on your recommendation. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. Are there any more questions? And you come back in 30 days with those answers to Commissioner Davis Johnson question as well.
yes, I will.
We'll
We're
just
taking
get
notes.
we'll get it. And then from that 30 days after that, every 2 months, come back and do a status report on land bank and where we're headed. Commissioner Cochran Johnson. We can't hear you. Commissioner Cochran Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say to Mr. Mitchell, as well as the PECS committee, that it's exciting to see the land bank move forward. It's such an important vehicle from an economic development standpoint. It can assist us with getting a lot of abated properties back into productive use and on tax rolls, especially as we're looking at, the development of affordable housing and seeing trends in the market. I just thank everyone for working on it long term, and so happy that we've had 4 meetings and we have a very good board. So I expect nothing but the best and look forward to future reports. And thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Yes, and thank you for helping to get this off the ground and making sure that we can move forward, because it's timely now more than ever. And I tell people all the time, I was born, affordable housing was a problem. And now it's still where we are, where you're now dealing with affordability, but a lot of it is in the eye of the beholder, because as your incomes move and inflation is up. So now having this land bank right now can really help us put a dent in a lot of those critical issues around housing. So sometimes it may not happen then, but now it's the time that we can get these things up and running. It seems like you all moving fast too, the committee and the Land Bank Authority. So I hope that keeps going as we move forward. So thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing from you in 30 days.
Thank you.
All right. All right, commissioners, that's the end of our agenda. I entertain the motion to adjourn. So Commissioner Ray can get his hot agendas ready.
Commissioner,
Oh, yeah, the vote. the
yeah,
vote.
you didn't.
Yes, I'll entertain a motion for our Community Service Board appointee.
Yeah, I make a motion that we appoint Sheriff Maddox to the Community Service Board.
Second,
Moved and properly second. Is there any more comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to appoint Sheriff Maddox to the Community Service Board, all in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson, aye.
Yes,
And not that I want to step on my meeting coming up, but you did have the workforce housing ordinance on the agenda.
oh, they moved it off because they still had some more work to do.
Gotcha. Good enough.
Yeah, that was, otherwise we'd have had it on here. So I told them to bring it back in probably 30 days. It should be ready. So thank you for that. Commissioner Davis Johnson, you had a question?
No, I didn't.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I see you all in 5.